some people were wondering, right, if I was okay. You know, why is this guy here? But no, I
Yes,
yes, sister.
So, do you believe in like the strict original form of Islam, or like the 21st century?
Yeah.
Like, do you believe in changing it to like fit our lives now, or
Yeah,
keeping it strict?
That's a great question, sister. That's a great question. I'm a student of Ustaz Mahmoud, right? And so how I see things is really based upon my ability to understand his teachings, right? From what I understand of his teachings, Ustaz Mahmoud is not, Ustaz Mahmoud believes completely in what he calls the first message of Islam. He believes completely in it. He believes that it came by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it was perfect for the 7th century. And it's based on the Quran, an understanding of the Quran. But certain chapters of the Quran, the Medini chapters of the Quran, and not the chapters of Mecca. So yes, I believe in the original Islam that was revealed. I just believe it was perfect for the 7th century, but it's not perfect for us 1,400 years ago in our development. 1,400 years later in our development. The beautiful thing about Ustaz Mahmoud's teaching, though, and this is so important for people to understand, Ustaz is not saying we need to change Islam to fit the 21st century. Ustaz would never say that. He's saying Islam is suitable already for all time, but it has to be properly understood. This is what he's saying. He said Islam itself has 2 messages. Trying to remember the ayat. Okay, he said it has 2 levels of it. There's 2 messages in it. And so, why I'm saying that is, he's not saying every individual needs to find what.
الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتابا متشابها من
That's
الثاني.
what I was thinking of. Yes, yes, it's in the Ahsan Kitab, Thani. But the idea is that it came from God. It's already 2 levels. And by basing the law now on the original level and not on the level that came more recently, the Median levels, we can establish an Islamic law suitable based on the principles, the humanistic principles that are talked about today but not realized today. Because people talk about democracy in this country. You saw what happened with the democratic system at Trayvon Martin. Look at the court system. It's broken. Right? We still have real issues around trying to be democratic. People talk about being socialistic, but they don't have the capacity to be socialistic. So what I'm saying is that, yes, I believe in the first message of Islam. I also believe that Islam has 2 messages. And I think if we approach it that way, we avoid the problem of every Muslim deciding what works for them. Because that's what's starting to happen. Every Muslim is starting to say, well, I don't quite understand how this could have been God's word. This is a very, you have to think about that statement. God revealed that, but I don't really believe that. That's a very strong statement. Ustaz Mahmoud is not saying something like that. He's saying Allah revealed that at a time and a place for a particular purpose, to serve its purpose. And that is the first message of Islam. The time has come now for the higher principles to be applied. The law needs to be derived from the higher principles. And that way, we have a cohesive religion that everybody can understand, and it all comes from the Quran. It's not from outside of the Quran, it's from inside of the Quran. And that's the beauty of this teaching. That's so different than someone, we have a lot of intelligent people in the Islamic world, and they're looking at the Quran and they're coming up with their ideas and their solutions, and they're mixing this and that. That's not mixing anything. He's taking it from the Quran itself. And this is what convinced me of it, I was convinced by the fact that he's saying something very frightening, that there's 2 messages of Islam. That's frightening to think that, because if that's true, then we are in a very dangerous situation as Muslims when we think it's only one message. Okay, so if he's correct, if Ustaz Mahmoud's correct, and I'm confident he's correct, right? Then it's important for everybody to take a good look at what he's saying. Because I think when people do, they'll see he's saying something that's very, very important, and that is that Islam has the capacity to govern our lives, all of us, men and women, Muslims and non-Muslims. See? Right now.
So, brother Abdullah, sorry, after you became a Muslim and you learn more about Islam, have you tried to convert anybody to Islam, or have you tried to...
That's a great question. Have I tried to convert anybody to Islam? That's a real powerful question. My best attempt to convert anybody to Islam is to try to convert myself to a Muslim. This is what my struggle has been, to try to, because this is the problem. There's one problem with Fiqh al-Jamhuri, right? Is that once you learn it, you have a real tremendous responsibility on your hands. Now, right? Right? Once you learn it, you have this huge responsibility on your hand to try to practice it. And the practice is very high level of practice. Right? So my issue about but I would say this. When I'm practicing Islam as well as I can, or attempting to practice it as well as I can, people are interested in what I'm doing. They're interested in what I'm saying. That's what I'll say. But attempting to go out and convert someone, I'm more trying to just convert my stubborn self to a Muslim. That's a great question, because one of the beauties of Christianity,
Abdullah, what's the question?
The question was, since I've come back to the States after becoming a Jamhuri, have I experienced racism or oppression because I'm now converted to being a Muslim? And I was going to go back and say this. One of the beauties of Christianity is that Christians allow people the freedom to change their mind, right? So there's not the pressure on a Christian. I was born a Christian, right? So when you're a Christian, if you decide to convert to Buddhism or Islam or Hinduism, you're not going to find people that are threatening you, or you know what I'm saying? It's going to be okay, especially in the Western world. It might be in the United States in particular. So even in my family, which is a religious family, some parts of it, not all of them, but some parts of it, I got some fear. Their understanding of what Islam was, right? And then being afraid for me when I told them I was a Muslim. But in my immediate family, what they noticed was I came back from Sudan a better person than when I left. See? So this convinced my sisters, this convinced my mother and so forth, that I found my grandmother. You see? Whatever it is that was, it's okay. That's a really important thing to think about, is how we as Muslims are, because people will say, well, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. Well, Christians say the same thing about Christianity. I don't know which one is true, right? But I do know that Ustaz Mahmoud said, he talked about a hadith that says, where the Holy Prophet Muhammad is with the Sahaba, and he's saying to them that at the end, there'll come a time when people will be called to rise against you, just like you're calling people to a feast. That there will be people rising against Muslims, and they'll be joining in against Muslims, just like they're going to have a feast. And his companion said to him, well, we won't be many during that time, will we? And he said, no, you will be many, but you'll be like the foam on the top of a river. You won't have any substance, and God won't care anything about you.
يوشك
تداعى الأمم
كما تداعى الأكلة
على القصعة.
قالوا أن قلة نحن من الله قال كل غثاء
كثير ولكن
Yeah, and so that's my Mahmoud said that time is coming. That time is coming. So when you're doing the work that you're doing about, well, we know what Islam is in our hearts. We have it. We know what it is. So how is it that we're not attracting people? Right? That's the question. How is it that we're not attracting people? How can we be repelling people with Islam? We can't. You can't. You can't repel people with Islam. Right? We're repelling people, but it's not with Islam. It's with a misunderstanding of Islam. This is what I think.